What is up, Watch fam, and welcome to Rant TNH. I'm Christian from Theo and Harris, and on Mondays I rant about things. So we'll do a quick wristwatch check before we get into it. I am wearing a Rolex reference 1601, one of my absolute favorite references. It's a totally humble reference relative to vintage Rolex, a game that gets into the 10s, 20s, 30s, millions. So this to me is a beautiful reference. It's just really simple and versatile, and I love the taupe dial. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We all know this is one of my favorite watches of all time, vintage or not. Let's get into our episode though today. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I guess today's kind of the beta for the new kind of, it's not going to be a new series. It's going to be the same Rant TNH, Ask TNH kind of thing, but just occasionally I'm going to be doing some collection reviews. So I've gotten a lot of emails about them, people wanting to know what move they should make next or what I think of their collection, and I don't know. Obviously, I can't review all of them. I'm not going to do these very frequently, but I think that it is interesting content. I think it's not just interesting for you guys to watch, but I think it's helpful for my viewers. So let's do our first collection review. This first one's going to be of a fan who asked a couple of weeks ago, Nicholas Ganji, Nick. So let's just get into it. Nick's got a couple of watches. I'm going to read them off real quick, ramble in. Quartz Steelers watch, Citizen Eco Drive, and it's a bunch of different details. And then Eco Drive, this it gets specific, and I'll get into it later. But Longines Mystery Dial, Hamilton Navy Pioneer Auto, G-Shock Nomos Tangente, Rolex Milgauss, Omega Speedmaster, Jaeger Cultra or Jaeger Cultra, Master Control Date, Tudor Black Bay Red, Audemars Piguet or Royal Oak, and Reverso Duo Face. So you got a hell of a collection, man. You've got bulk there, and you've got quality. So it's not you definitely. I don't know if it's you. I don't think you took my advice. You've been collecting longer than this video has been around, but you agree with me that it's not just about quantity, but you really do need to have quality. You've obviously invested a lot of money into your collection. I didn't do the numbers just because it's not what the show is about, but you've put a lot of money into this, and no matter how much money you have, it's still a lot of money. So I do commend you for committing. Committing to your hobby. That does not mean that you people out there who have collections of Seikos and and vintage whatever doesn't mean you're not committing to your hobby, but this is obviously a large, objectively substantial commitment to watches. But the more money you spend, the higher the bar becomes for what I expect of you. So it's kind of like it's this this odd game. So how have you done so far? I think you've done well, but I think that I guess it's interesting. I don't know how we're going to be doing this series yet because it's hard. I mean, I can't just give you advice totally, because certain watches that I would tell you to get rid of, you couldn't get rid of. The same way that someone may recommend I get rid of my Swatch because it doesn't really fit in my collection. It's my first watch. So, I think that it is a hard balance. Let's actually talk about, before I give you recommendations, let's talk about the particular watches and the stories kind of behind them that you talked about. Let's do that. Okay, your Quartz Steeler watch, which was a gift from your mom 4 years ago. I mean, that's just awesome. It's just one of those things. It's worth nothing monetarily, but who gives a shit? It's just a cool thing. You said you wear it in the games. That to me is awesome. I would never, ever get rid of that, and I would never even let it collect dust in a box. That's the kind of watch that you really should be wearing, all the time whenever you get the opportunity to watch a game or whatever. And I bet that's the kind of watch that gets all kinds of nostalgic in the next 10, 12 years, 15, 20 years too. So that's awesome. The Citizen Eco Drive, I mean, it's a good watch. I mean, these watches are technologically up there for sure. I think that it might get a little bit redundant with your G-Shock, but it was a gift from your dad. So it doesn't really matter how redundant it is. I wouldn't sell a gift from my dad. And it's also, I mean, although he probably spent a lot of money on it because you said he bought MSRP, it's still, it's not worth enough money for me, especially in respect to your collection and how much money you've spent, to liquidate that watch. There's not, it's not like it was a super expensive watch that if you liquidate it, you could do big things. So I would say keep the watch. I think that it is convenient, like you said, that you don't have to, recharge it, you don't have to replace a battery and stuff like that. So I do respect the watch. Redundant, yes, in the same function as the G-Shock, but still a cool thing. The Longines Mystery Dial, that's awesome. He said that it was, Nick, it was your parents' anniversary gift of your mom to your dad. I mean, that's just the coolest thing ever. I will get into, when I get into recommendations a little bit later, I'll tell you that you need more vintage, but I will tell you that this watch is an amazing, just foundational element or piece in your collection. Although your collection doesn't err toward vintage, this is just such an awesome staple. I mean, not only is it a vintage Longines, first of all, it's a vintage watch. It's great. I'm sure it's a conservative size watch, which is great. It's not, it's not a big monstrosity, which they're great too. I mean, the vintage Universal Geneves that are like dinner plates, they're super rare and super expensive, but there is something to be said about a small vintage dress watch, and I love that. I love the fact that it's a mystery watch. Those watches were not that popular, and they're certainly, maybe they were popular then, they're certainly not very popular now. So, I mean, that's just an amazing, amazing piece of horology, but even more so, your family, and I love that. Your Hamilton Navy Pioneer, I think it's a cool looking watch. You're right, the lugs are awesome, the dial is cool. I think the sub-seconds are a little bit too small, but it is a cool watch. It was your first mechanical watch. I do respect it. Do I think it could be liquidated? Yes, but then again, like the question begs, why liquidated? It's not to insult the watch, it's just not worth enough money to go through the effort if you have such a, a monetarily high collection. If that was tying up 10, 15, 20% of your collection dollars, I would say, listen, maybe dump it. But if you do enjoy it, if it does hold a sentimental piece for you, then don't move it. And the next two are very interesting. You have a G-Shock next to a Nomos. Nomos Tangente next to a G-Shock. What was it? I don't remember. I don't want to read the email. But you could put a photo and the reference right here. I think it's awesome that you could take a beating with that watch. You take it camping and stuff like that. That's awesome. With that said, you can also do that with your Citizen, like I mentioned. I personally would not have both those watches in my collection, but that's just me. I mean, once again, it's not really an objective, rule here. I love the Nomos. I think it's a great watch. I think that my comments on the Nomos will come in a little bit later when I get into the fact that you have a master control date, a Royal Oak, a duo face. I'll get into that in a second, but yeah, we'll hold my thoughts on the Nomos for a little bit later. I love the Milgauss. I think it's a great watch. I think it's an undervalued watch, but I will say that between the Professional Speedy Pro, which you have in the next listing, the Milgauss, the Royal Oak, and the Black Bay, to me, it's that part of your collection is way overcrowded. Should you sell any of them? If you don't want to, then no, I'm not going to tell you to. I mean, it's not important. If it's not important to you, then don't do it. But I personally do think that between those watches, you have too many watches that are ticking the same box there. And I think that considering that the Royal Oak probably ticks that box better than anything else, I would consider liquidating the rest. I mean, put it this way, your Tudor is probably a beater, or at least for most people, it's a really, really nice, expensive beater, because it's a tool watch. I mean, it's a workhorse watch, it's thick, it's beefy, it's heavy. I mean, that's the kind of watch that will just go to hell and back with you. It's like Dante's Inferno, and then come back up. But that kind of defeats the purpose of having the Citizen and the G-Shock then. Do you know what I mean? They achieve the same thing, but in a much less expensive way and a much more expensive way. So I think this is where your collection is getting a little bit confusing. Once you get into the Royal Oak, I get why you chose it. I prefer the 15202 just because of aesthetic, but overall, I mean, it's a great watch. I mean, 15400, especially you got the black dial. I think it's it's just a beautiful watch. It's more bulky, so I definitely couldn't wear it. But huge props. I mean, you're a young dude. What are you, 23, and you have a 15400? I mean, that's just it's impressive in the most kind of like gorilla-ish way for me to say that. Like, it's just impressive because it is. It's a beautiful watch. But I will say once again, I think that you're achieving the same thing on so many different watches that I would pick that one to achieve that hardy, luxurious luxurious sports watch. And then you go into the Duo Face, which is a watch that to me is perfect. I mean, I'm speechless. I mean, the watch to me, the watch is perfect. It's a reverso. It's an ultra thin. The only reversos that not the only. It's the reversos that speak to me the most, and it's a Duo Face. Come on, you don't really get to tick that many more boxes in a dress watch. So now let's get into my actual recommendations and what I kind of look for in a collection. I look at a collection that's concise, a collection that doesn't show but minimal redundancies, and just something that's focused. It doesn't necessarily need to be 3 watches that achieve all of the things, but I think that if you're going to have a couple, 4 or 5 watches, they all need to be just achieving separate things. Otherwise, you have competing watches. And I think that competing watches, one should be replaced because one is better. First off, I don't think there's any need for you to have the Master Control date and the Nomos. And that's unfortunate because I love the Nomos and I love the Master Control, but I would say liquidate one of them. A couple things you could do is just liquidate the Nomos and just keep the cash and wait to invest that in a different watch and then keep the Master Control. Or you can liquidate the Master Control and keep the Nomos, Or you can liquidate both of them and buy a Stoa Antea, which is a great looking watch. I mean, if you're going to go for the Nomos over the Master Control, then it's really more so of an aesthetic thing than it is a mechanical thing, because obviously the Master Control is a better watch. It's a better finished watch. It's obviously a more expensive watch, and obviously it's holding up a lot more of the money there. So if those are really the three options there, and I don't think that anyone would really shake their hand at you if you decided, okay, since I have the Reverso, I have something from Jaeger LeCoultre that's checking a big luxury dress box, and I want something a little bit less expensive in the dress category, no problem with going with a Stoa there. And that would free up, what, $7,000 of your money? I think that's a pretty good decision. I would personally consolidate the G-Shock and the Citizen. I know I said I wouldn't before because of it's just not that much money, but I feel like just the spaces in the watch box do matter in this. It's almost like rental space, and I want to like consolidate that. So I would take care of one of those, decide which one. I don't think you're going to do that because they obviously both seem to serve different functions in your particular life, but in mine they wouldn't. I know that you mentioned in your email that you'd really like to consider getting a piece from A. Lange & Söhne or Vacheron or even Patek, and my answer there, or even JLC Memovox, I would say stay away from JLC because you have at least one, if not two, if you're going to trade them. But I think that if you were to trade or get rid of your Milgauss, your Master Control, and your Nomos, I mean that's what? It's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's like 11 grand. That's a very that was a very loose number there. I didn't do the math really, but you're talking anywhere between 10 and 12 and maybe 13 or something like that $1,000. Bottom line is it's a lot of money. I mean that brings you 2/3 the way there for an A. Lange & Söhne. Actually more than that. You could pick up an amazing guaranteed serviced A. Lange & Söhne 1815 in white for 13 grand. So that might be a really big move for you. And at that point, you would have the Reverso, which is it's the Reverso. I mean, it's hard to get better than that. You have the Reverso, then you have the Royal Oak, which achieve both luxury things, both luxury segments, but different functions there. The dress and the hardcore sport. But then to get an A. Lange & Söhne, I just think that's talk about finishing. I mean, talk about just German manufacturer. I don't know if you've ever held one before or worn one or considered one, but I highly recommend them. But I think that would be a really smart move for you. I love the Milgauss. I recommend the Milgauss to many people, but in this circumstance, just on watches, no emotional, no sentiment, nothing of that, I would say liquidate those watches and maybe consider something from ALS. That's it. You don't have to take my advice at all. I don't expect you to take my advice. This is much more so of a conversation, especially over drinks. I wish I was having a drink right now. Much more so of a conversation that's just fun and just kind of thought-provoking and how to manage money and what achieves what. And it's just, building a collection is fun. It's not just about how much money do you have. It's not just about what decisions have you made, but coming to those decisions and deciding what to make the move on. That's a lot of fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Rant TNH. I don't know, I guess it was a rant, right? I kind of talked without really that many questions. I don't know. Who knows if it was really a rant or not? But I think we're going to keep it in this Monday spot. If you guys want me to do a collection review, shoot me an email at info@theoandharris.com. I will not get to all of them. I promise I won't get to all of them. But I think we could do one of these, maybe one a month or something like that. We'll see what's going on. But I'm looking forward to seeing your guys' emails. And thank you, Nick, for giving me the opportunity to look at your watches and kind of review the collection's balance. I think you've done a really good job. And that's it. Rock on, watch geeks.